Ladies and gentlemen, there comes a moment in every person's life when a difficult truth must be faced. Nobody truly cares about your potential more than you do. This realization is not meant to discourage you. It is meant to awaken you. When you stop waiting for attention, approval, or understanding from the world, you reclaim your power. You move from dependency to self-mastery. Most people suffer not because life is cruel, but because they expect life to be fair. They expect recognition before effort, motivation before discipline, and support before self-responsibility. Emotional intelligence begins when you recognize these expectations and let them go. The world does not owe you encouragement. It responds only to action, consistency, and clarity. Self-mastery is not built when people are watching. It is formed in early mornings, in quiet rooms, in moments of resistance when the mind searches for comfort and you choose discipline instead. This is where character is shaped. When nobody is clapping, when nobody is checking on you, when nobody is impressed, that is when the real work begins. Understand this deeply. Feeling alone does not mean you are lost. Often, it means you are being prepared. Solitude removes distraction. It exposes weakness. It forces honesty. Without external noise, you are confronted with who you truly are and who you must become. Those who avoid this stage remain dependent. Those who endure it develop strength. Purpose is not something you find outside yourself. It is revealed when you stop blaming circumstances and start taking responsibility. Responsibility is not a burden. It is freedom. The moment you say, "This is my life and I am accountable for it," you step into authority over your actions, your emotions, and your direction. Do not misunderstand this message. Doing it for yourself does not mean becoming selfish or cold. It means becoming grounded. It means building a foundation so strong that praise does not inflate you and criticism does not break you. When your motivation comes from within, you are no longer controlled by moods, opinions, or trends. So train your mind. Regulate your emotions. Commit to daily improvement even when it feels invisible. Nobody may notice your struggle, and that is precisely why it matters. Because when results finally appear, they will not be based on luck or validation. They will be built on discipline, purpose, and self-respect. External validation is unreliable because it is built on conditions that are always changing. People's opinions shift with mood, benefit, convenience, and trend. What they praise today, they may ignore tomorrow. When your motivation depends on recognition, likes, applause, or encouragement, your discipline becomes fragile. The moment appreciation disappears, effort weakens. This is why relying on validation from others quietly turns into a form of slavery. Your actions are no longer guided by values, but by reactions. True growth cannot survive in such an environment. From a young age, many are conditioned to seek approval. Good grades bring praise, obedience brings acceptance, performance brings attention. Slowly, the mind learns a dangerous lesson. I matter only when I am noticed. This belief follows people into adulthood. They hesitate to start unless someone supports them. They stop when nobody watches. They doubt themselves when silence replaces praise. Emotional intelligence begins when you identify this pattern and consciously break it. You realize that waiting for validation is not humility, it is avoidance of responsibility. Inner discipline, on the other hand, is permanent because it does not depend on external circumstances. Discipline is a private agreement you make with yourself. It exists regardless of mood, audience, or outcome. When you act from discipline, you do what must be done because it aligns with who you choose to become, not because it feels good or looks impressive. This form of discipline creates stability. Even on days of low energy, uncertainty, or doubt, your actions remain consistent. Consistency is what builds skill, confidence, and trust in yourself. The problem with external validation is not that it feels good, but that it feels necessary. Once validation becomes necessary, fear enters the mind. Fear of being judged, fear of being ignored, fear of failing publicly. This fear limits potential more than lack of talent ever could. Many capable individuals never reach their potential because they are negotiating with opinions instead of committing to growth. They measure progress by feedback instead of effort. As a result, their identity becomes fragile, easily shaken by criticism or neglect. When validation is removed, something uncomfortable happens. You feel exposed. You feel unseen. You feel alone. But this discomfort is not a sign of weakness. It is a signal that you are transitioning from external control to internal authority. In silence, you discover whether your goals are truly yours or borrowed from others. Without applause, you learn whether your effort is genuine or performative. This stage is difficult because the ego loses its fuel, but it is necessary because the ego must shrink for discipline to grow. Inner discipline teaches you to respect yourself before expecting respect from the world. When you show up consistently, even when nobody acknowledges it, you send a powerful message to your own mind. I can be trusted. This self-trust becomes the foundation of confidence. Confidence built this way is calm, not loud. It does not seek to prove itself. It does not collapse under criticism. It simply continues. This is the kind of confidence that carries you through long-term challenges, not just short bursts of motivation. Another danger of external validation is comparison. When attention becomes the measure of worth, comparison becomes unavoidable. You start measuring your progress against others' highlights. You feel behind, inferior, or impatient. This comparison distorts reality and drains focus. Inner discipline removes comparison from the equation. You are no longer competing for attention. You are committed to improvement. The only comparison that matters becomes who you were yesterday versus who you are today. Purpose also becomes clearer when validation is no longer the goal. Many people confuse popularity with purpose. They chase what is admired instead of what is meaningful. Inner discipline realigns priorities. It asks difficult questions. What must I do even if nobody praises me? What path would I walk if no one approved? The answers to these questions reveal authentic purpose. Purpose discovered this way is resilient because it is rooted in values, not visibility. Over time, inner discipline changes how you relate to others. You stop resenting people for not supporting you. You stop expecting them to understand your journey. Emotional intelligence matures here. You realize that everyone is fighting their own battles, driven by their own limitations. This understanding replaces bitterness with clarity. You no longer waste energy seeking sympathy. You invest energy in action. When success finally comes, it feels different. It is quieter, deeper, and more stable. You are not desperate to show it off because it is not meant to fill a void. It is the natural result of sustained effort. And if success takes time, you do not collapse because your discipline is not dependent on results. This patience is rare and it is powerful. In the end, external validation will always come and go. Applause fades, attention shifts, trends change, but inner discipline remains because it is not borrowed, it is built. When you learn to act without being seen, to grow without being praised, and to persist without being encouraged, you step into true self-mastery. This is why external validation is unreliable, but inner discipline is permanent. It is the difference between being driven by the world and being directed by purpose. Emotional intelligence begins the moment you stop expecting others to rescue you. As long as you believe someone else should understand your pain, fix your problems, or motivate your growth, you remain emotionally dependent. This dependence is subtle. It hides behind phrases like, "If only they supported me," or "I would succeed if someone believed in me." These thoughts feel reasonable, but they quietly give away your power. They place your progress in the hands of people who are busy managing their own lives. From childhood, many are taught, directly or indirectly, that help will arrive when things become difficult. Parents intervene, teachers guide, friends advise. While support is valuable, the danger lies in never learning emotional self-reliance. When adulthood arrives with its indifference and pressure, the untrained mind feels abandoned. It interprets the absence of rescue as injustice rather than reality. Emotional intelligence corrects this misunderstanding. It teaches that lack of rescue is not neglect. It is an invitation to maturity. Expecting rescue also distorts emotions. When you believe others should step in, frustration grows when they do not. This frustration turns into resentment, blame, and bitterness. You begin to view people as obstacles instead of neutral participants in their own struggles. Emotional intelligence interrupts this cycle by shifting focus inward. It asks a simple but uncomfortable question. What part of this is my responsibility? The moment you ask this, emotional chaos begins to organize itself. Self-rescue does not mean isolation or pride. It means ownership. It means recognizing that while guidance can be helpful, transformation must be personal. No one can discipline your mind for you. No one can regulate your emotions on your behalf. No one can carry your purpose inside them. When you accept this, emotions become tools instead of masters. Sadness becomes information, not identity. Anger becomes a signal, not a command. Fear becomes something to observe, not obey. One of the most powerful shifts in emotional intelligence is learning to sit with discomfort without outsourcing it. Many people immediately seek distraction, validation, or advice when discomfort arises. They scroll, complain, or seek reassurance. While temporary relief may come, growth does not. Emotional maturity is built when you remain present with discomfort long enough to understand it. This presence builds emotional strength. It teaches you that feelings rise and fall, and you are not destroyed by them. Expecting rescue also weakens decision-making. When you believe someone will step in, you delay action. You wait for the perfect moment, the right support, the ideal condition. Life rarely provides these. Emotionally intelligent individuals act even when clarity is incomplete. They understand that movement creates clarity, not the other way around. By taking responsibility for action, they reduce anxiety and increase confidence. Another hidden cost of expecting rescue is the loss of self-trust. Each time you wait for someone else to fix a situation you could face, you reinforce the belief that you are incapable. Over time, this belief hardens. Emotional intelligence restores self-trust through repeated self-reliance. Each problem faced independently becomes evidence of capability. This evidence calms the mind more than any reassurance from others ever could. When you stop expecting others to rescue you, relationships also change. You stop demanding emotional labor from people who are unequipped to provide it. You communicate more clearly because you are no longer seeking permission or validation. Boundaries strengthen. Respect increases. People sense when you are grounded versus when you are dependent. Emotional independence attracts healthier connections because it is not driven by need, but by choice. Purpose becomes clearer in the absence of rescue. When no one is coming to save you, distractions fall away. You become more honest about what matters. Complaints lose their appeal because they do not change reality. Action becomes the only option. This clarity is uncomfortable at first, but it is liberating. You no longer waste energy explaining your struggles. You invest energy in solving them. There is also a deep humility in self-rescue. You learn that suffering is not unique to you. Others are not withholding help out of cruelty. They are often overwhelmed themselves. This understanding reduces emotional reactivity. Instead of asking, "Why doesn't anyone help me?" you begin to ask, "What can I do with what I have right now?" This question shifts the nervous system from helplessness to agency. Over time, emotional intelligence transforms identity. You no longer see yourself as a victim of circumstances or people. You see yourself as a participant in your own evolution. This does not eliminate hardship, but it changes your relationship with it. Challenges become training rather than punishment. Loneliness becomes reflection rather than abandonment. Responsibility becomes strength rather than burden. In moments of crisis, this form of emotional intelligence becomes invaluable. When others panic, you remain composed because you are not waiting to be saved. You assess, adapt, and act. This calm presence is often mistaken for confidence, but it is actually clarity born from self-responsibility. You have practiced standing alone, so you are not afraid when support is absent. Ultimately, stopping the expectation of rescue is an act of respect toward yourself. It signals that you believe in your capacity to learn, endure, and grow. Emotional intelligence is not about suppressing emotion. It is about mastering response. When you stop looking outward for rescue and start looking inward for responsibility, you move from emotional dependence to emotional authority. This is where true maturity begins, and from this place, purpose can finally take shape. Self-mastery is built in silence because silence removes performance. When no one is watching, there is no audience to impress, no image to maintain, and no reward for pretending. What remains is truth. In silence, your habits reveal themselves clearly. Your discipline is tested honestly. This is why silence is uncomfortable for many people. It exposes gaps between who they claim to be and how they actually live. Yet this exposure is not punishment, it is instruction. Applause creates illusion. When people cheer, the ego grows louder than awareness. You may feel strong, disciplined, or committed, but that feeling is often borrowed from attention rather than earned through consistency. Silence takes that borrowed strength away. It asks a direct question. Who are you when no one is validating you? Self-mastery begins when you answer that question with action instead of excuses. In silence, motivation fades quickly. This is important to understand. Motivation is emotional energy, and emotions fluctuate. When motivation disappears, only structure remains. Those who rely on excitement collapse here. Those who have built systems continue. This is why true growth does not happen in moments of inspiration, but in routines repeated without enthusiasm. Silence trains you to act without emotional reward. This is a rare and powerful skill. When you work in silence, you also learn patience. There is no immediate feedback to reassure you that you are progressing. Progress becomes internal before it becomes visible. This stage tests commitment deeply. Many quit here, not because the work is too hard, but because the mind craves acknowledgement. Silence starves the ego, and the ego resists. But if you endure this resistance, something important happens. The ego weakens, and discipline strengthens. Silence also sharpens awareness. Without noise, distraction, and opinion, you begin to notice your thoughts more clearly. You see how often the mind seeks comfort, avoidance, or shortcuts. You observe emotional patterns instead of being controlled by them. This observation is a core element of self-mastery. You cannot master what you cannot see. Silence creates the space to see clearly. Another reason self-mastery is built in silence is because silence demands honesty. You cannot hide behind words when there is no one to speak to. You cannot exaggerate effort when only results and consistency exist. This honesty is uncomfortable but necessary. Growth that begins with honesty is sustainable. Growth built on image eventually collapses. Silence teaches responsibility without drama. When nobody knows your struggle, you stop narrating it. You stop seeking sympathy. You stop explaining why things are hard. You simply do the work. This removes emotional waste. Energy that would have gone into talking is redirected into action. Over time, this creates efficiency, clarity, and calm. Working in silence also builds emotional independence. You learn not to rely on praise to continue or criticism to stop. Your internal standards become stronger than external opinions. This stability is rare in a world driven by reaction. When emotions rise, you do not need to broadcast them. You regulate them privately. This is not suppression. It is control. Emotional control is one of the highest forms of self-mastery. Silence strengthens focus. When you are not constantly sharing progress or seeking feedback, attention stays on the task. You enter deeper states of concentration. Learning accelerates. Skills compound. This focused effort produces results that appear sudden to outsiders, but were built slowly and quietly. People call it luck, but it is silent consistency revealing itself. There is also humility in silence. You accept that growth takes time and does not require announcement. You become less concerned with being seen and more concerned with being capable. This humility protects you from arrogance when success comes. Because you remember the quiet work, success feels earned, not entitled. Silence is also where resilience is formed. When no one is encouraging you, quitting feels easier. Continuing anyway builds inner strength. Each time you push forward without recognition, you reinforce endurance. This endurance becomes part of your identity. Later, when challenges intensify, you are not shocked by difficulty. You are familiar with it. Many people fear silence because it feels like invisibility. But invisibility is powerful. It gives you room to experiment, fail, adjust, and grow without judgment. You are not defined by early mistakes. You are not pressured to perform perfectly. This freedom accelerates learning and reduces fear. Over time, silence changes how you relate to success. You no longer chase quick wins for attention. You invest in long-term mastery. You become willing to be misunderstood temporarily for the sake of becoming competent permanently. This trade-off separates those who peak early from those who last. When results finally appear, they carry a different weight. They are calm, stable, and undeniable. You do not need to announce them because they speak for themselves, and even then, you are not dependent on them because your identity is rooted in discipline, not outcome. Self-mastery built in silence creates a quiet confidence. You do not need to convince others of your worth. You are not easily shaken by doubt or praise. You trust your process because you have tested it alone. This trust becomes your anchor. In the end, silence is not emptiness. It is a training ground. It strips away illusion and builds substance. Those who endure it develop depth, control, and purpose. Those who avoid it remain dependent on noise. This is why self-mastery is not loud. It does not announce itself early. It grows quietly, patiently, and powerfully, until one day, it no longer needs to speak to be recognized. Purpose becomes clear when excuses are removed because excuses create noise that hides truth. As long as the mind has a reason to delay, avoid, or justify inaction, clarity remains blurred. Excuses feel protective. They soften failure, preserve comfort, and defend identity. But they also keep life small. When excuses are stripped away, there is nowhere left to hide. And in that exposure, purpose begins to reveal itself. Most excuses are not lies. They are partial truths exaggerated into barriers. Lack of time, lack of resources, lack of support. These are real challenges, but they are rarely absolute. The problem is not the existence of difficulty, it is the decision to let difficulty define limits. Excuses allow you to remain inactive while feeling reasonable. They prevent the discomfort of confronting potential. Emotional intelligence recognizes this pattern and questions it. When excuses are removed, responsibility takes their place. Responsibility forces a clear question. Given my current reality, what is my next action? This question shifts focus from what is missing to what is possible. Purpose does not emerge from perfect conditions. It emerges from committed response to imperfect ones. Clarity grows when action replaces explanation. Excuses also protect identity. Many people fear discovering their true limits, so they hide behind reasons. If you never fully commit, you never fully fail. But you also never fully succeed. Removing excuses means accepting the risk of honest effort. It means allowing results to reflect reality rather than justification. This is uncomfortable, but it is the only path to authentic purpose. When you stop explaining why something cannot be done, you begin to notice what repeatedly calls your attention. Purpose often reveals itself through persistence of interest. What do you keep returning to even when it is difficult? What problem do you think about without being asked? What effort feels meaningful even when it is tiring? Excuses drown out these signals. Without them, patterns become visible. Excuses are often borrowed from society, family, or past experience. People like me don't succeed. This is just how life is. These narratives feel safe because they remove responsibility. But they also remove choice. Purpose requires choice. It demands that you decide who you are becoming instead of accepting who you have been told you are. Removing excuses breaks inherited limitations. Another way excuses block purpose is by keeping attention external. You focus on what others should change instead of what you can change. This focus leads to frustration rather than progress. When excuses are removed, attention turns inward. You begin to refine skills, manage time, and regulate emotions. Purpose grows stronger as competence grows. Clarity of purpose also requires discomfort. Excuses are comfort mechanisms. They prevent confrontation with uncertainty. Purpose is rarely obvious at first. It requires experimentation, failure, and adjustment. Without excuses, you are forced to engage with the process. Through engagement, understanding deepens. You learn what aligns with your values and what does not. When excuses disappear, priorities sharpen. Time reveals itself honestly. You realize how much energy was spent avoiding rather than building. This realization can be painful, but it is also empowering. You begin to allocate time deliberately. Purpose is supported by structure, not intention alone. Removing excuses exposes the need for structure. Excuses also distort self-image. They allow you to see yourself as capable without proving it. Removing them forces alignment between self-image and action. This alignment builds integrity. Integrity strengthens purpose because your internal narrative matches your external behavior. There is less inner conflict, less self-deception. As excuses fall away, fear often rises. Fear of failure, fear of judgment, fear of wasting effort. Purpose does not eliminate fear, it gives fear direction. You move forward despite fear because the alternative, remaining stagnant, becomes more painful. Removing excuses clarifies this trade-off. Purpose is not a single discovery. It is a direction refined over time. Excuses interrupt this refinement by stopping movement. Without excuses, movement continues. Each step provides feedback. Feedback sharpens purpose. You adjust, learn, and progress. This iterative process is how clarity is built. When purpose is grounded in action rather than fantasy, it becomes resilient. You are less shaken by setbacks because your sense of meaning is tied to effort, not outcome. Excuses make purpose fragile because it exists only in theory. Removing them turns purpose into practice. Over time, living without excuses changes how you relate to yourself. Self-respect increases because you no longer betray your own intentions. Confidence grows quietly. You trust your ability to respond, not control. This trust is foundational to purpose. Ultimately, purpose becomes clear not when life becomes easy, but when excuses are no longer acceptable. In that moment, you stop negotiating with comfort and start committing to growth. You act not because conditions are perfect, but because responsibility demands it. And in that commitment, direction emerges. Purpose is not found, it is revealed through disciplined action, once excuses no longer stand in the way. Responsibility is power, not pressure, but most people misunderstand it because they associate responsibility with burden, blame, and exhaustion. They see responsibility as something imposed from the outside, rather than chosen from within. This misunderstanding creates resistance. People avoid responsibility because they believe it will weigh them down. In reality, avoiding responsibility is what creates pressure. Responsibility, when accepted consciously, does the opposite. It gives control, clarity, and direction. Pressure comes from helplessness. It comes from feeling that life is happening to you rather than through you. When you believe circumstances, people, or luck control your outcomes, anxiety increases. You feel reactive, defensive, and overwhelmed. Responsibility removes this pressure by returning agency to you. The moment you say, "This is my responsibility," you also say, "This is within my influence." Influence is power. Many people confuse responsibility with self-blame. Self-blame is destructive because it focuses on past mistakes without learning. Responsibility is constructive because it focuses on present action. It does not ask, "Whose fault is this?" It asks, "What is my next move?" This shift in thinking reduces emotional weight. Instead of carrying guilt, you carry direction. Responsibility also simplifies life. When you stop blaming others, circumstances, or timing, the mental noise decreases. You no longer replay arguments in your head or imagine how things should have been different. You deal with what is. This realism is grounding. It conserves mental energy and redirects it toward problem solving. The mind becomes calmer not because problems disappear, but because confusion does. Another reason responsibility is power is because it builds self-trust. Every time you take ownership of your actions and follow through, you reinforce the belief that you can rely on yourself. This self-trust reduces fear. You are less afraid of challenges because you know you will respond, adapt, and learn. Fear thrives in uncertainty. Responsibility replaces uncertainty with preparedness. Avoiding responsibility may feel lighter in the short term, but it creates long-term pressure. Tasks accumulate, problems grow, resentment builds, you feel behind and out of control. Responsibility, taken early, prevents this buildup. It may feel uncomfortable initially, but it prevents future overwhelm. This is why disciplined individuals often appear calm. They carry responsibility early, before it turns into crisis. Responsibility also strengthens emotional intelligence. When emotions arise, responsibility teaches you to manage response instead of demanding change from others. You stop saying, "They made me angry," and start asking, "Why did I react this way?" This internal inquiry builds awareness and control. Emotional regulation improves because you are no longer outsourcing it. There is also dignity in responsibility. When you take ownership of your life, you stop negotiating your worth. You do not need to justify yourself or seek permission. You act according to values rather than approval. This creates a quiet confidence. People sense when someone is responsible for their life. They trust them more, respect them more, and rely on them more. Responsibility clarifies priorities. When everything is someone else's fault, nothing is urgent. When it is your responsibility, focus sharpens. You begin to allocate time and energy more deliberately. You stop wasting effort on complaint and invest it in progress. This efficiency creates momentum. Another form of power in responsibility is adaptability. When you accept responsibility, you also accept that outcomes may not match expectations. Instead of collapsing when plans fail, you adjust. You do not see obstacles as proof of injustice, but as signals to refine approach. This adaptability is essential for long-term success. Responsibility also removes the need for control. This may sound contradictory, but it is not. When you are responsible for your actions, you stop trying to control others. You accept that their behavior is outside your authority. This acceptance reduces frustration. You focus on what you can influence, your effort, attitude, and decisions. This focus creates stability. Many people feel pressure because they carry responsibility unconsciously. They react to demands without choosing them. Conscious responsibility is different. It is chosen, not forced. You decide what you are responsible for and what you are not. This choice creates boundaries. Boundaries protect energy. With clear boundaries, responsibility feels empowering rather than draining. Responsibility also deepens purpose. When you take responsibility for your growth, your work, and your impact, life feels meaningful. You are no longer drifting. Even difficult tasks feel worthwhile because they align with self-respect. Purpose thrives in responsibility because responsibility creates contribution. In moments of failure, responsibility becomes especially powerful. Instead of denial or blame, you extract lessons. You adjust strategy. You continue. This resilience is not emotional toughness alone. It is logical clarity. You understand that failure is information, not identity. Over time, responsibility reshapes identity. You stop seeing yourself as a victim of circumstance and start seeing yourself as a builder. This identity shift changes how you approach challenges. You expect difficulty, but you do not fear it. You trust your capacity to respond. Ultimately, responsibility is power because it places life back in your hands. It does not promise ease, but it guarantees direction. Pressure comes from avoidance, delay, and dependency. Responsibility dissolves these by replacing them with ownership and action. When you accept responsibility fully, you realize it is not something weighing on you, it is something lifting you. Loneliness is often misunderstood as a sign of failure, rejection, or inadequacy, but in reality, it is frequently the training ground for strength. Many of the strongest individuals did not develop their resilience in comfort or constant companionship. They developed it in quiet seasons where support was limited and attention was absent. These periods are not punishment, they are preparation. When loneliness appears, the mind often reacts with fear. It asks, "What is wrong with me?" Or, "Why am I alone?" This reaction is natural but misleading. Loneliness does not always mean you are unwanted. Often, it means you are undergoing separation from dependency. You are being asked to stand without leaning. Strength cannot develop while constantly supported. Muscles grow under resistance, not ease. The same principle applies to character. In loneliness, distraction is reduced. Without constant social input, you are forced to confront yourself. This confrontation reveals weaknesses, habits, and emotional patterns that would otherwise remain hidden. Many people avoid loneliness because they fear what they might find. But what is found in loneliness is not deficiency. It is raw material for growth. Awareness is the first step towards strength. Loneliness also teaches emotional regulation. When no one is there to comfort you, you learn to comfort yourself. When no one reassures you, you learn to stabilize your own mind. This does not make you cold, it makes you grounded. Emotional self-soothing is a critical skill. Without it, emotions control behavior. With it, emotions become manageable signals. Another strength built in loneliness is patience. When companionship and validation are absent, time feels slower, impatience rises. But if you remain instead of escaping, patience develops. You learn that discomfort does not require immediate resolution. This patience later becomes endurance, the ability to persist through long challenges without panic. Loneliness also refines values. Without the influence of group opinion, you begin to think independently. You question assumptions. You clarify what truly matters to you. Many people adopt beliefs simply to belong. Loneliness removes this pressure. Purpose becomes clearer when you are not performing for acceptance. There is also humility in loneliness. You realize that you are not the center of others' attention, and that is freeing. You stop measuring worth by attention. This humility strengthens character. You become less reactive to neglect and less dependent on praise. Your emotional state stabilizes. In loneliness, discipline becomes essential. Without social structure, routines can collapse. Choosing structure in solitude builds discipline. You learn to organize your time, regulate your habits, and maintain standards without supervision. This self-governance is a powerful form of strength. Loneliness also develops courage. When you are alone, fears become louder. Doubts surface. Facing them without escape builds bravery. Courage is not absence of fear, it is willingness to remain present despite it. Each moment you endure loneliness without numbing or distraction strengthens this courage. Another important lesson of loneliness is self-compassion. Harsh self-judgment often rises in silence. Learning to speak to yourself with fairness rather than cruelty is essential. Strength without compassion becomes rigidity. Loneliness teaches balance. You learn to hold yourself accountable without destruction. Over time, loneliness builds independence. You stop waiting for permission, validation, or company to act. You move forward because you choose to. This independence is not isolation, it is stability. When relationships later enter your life, they are additions, not necessities. Loneliness also prepares you for leadership. Leaders often stand alone in decisions. They cannot rely on consensus for every choice. Those who have endured loneliness can handle this weight. They are not shaken by disagreement or solitude. They have practiced standing firm. Many people mistake loneliness for emptiness. In truth, it is space. Space to think, reflect, and rebuild. What you place into that space determines whether loneliness weakens or strengthens you. If you fill it with distraction, growth stalls. If you fill it with reflection and discipline, strength forms. Loneliness also teaches gratitude. When connection returns, you value it more. You choose relationships more wisely. You no longer seek connection to fill a void, but to share fullness. This discernment protects you from unhealthy attachments. In time, loneliness reveals its purpose. You realize it was not meant to isolate you permanently, but to prepare you internally. It trained your mind, strengthened your emotions, and clarified your direction. You emerge more whole, not less. Ultimately, loneliness is a teacher. It strips away dependency and builds self-reliance. It is uncomfortable, but it is honest. Those who endure it without running develop depth, resilience, and quiet strength. Loneliness, when faced with awareness, becomes not a weakness, but the ground on which inner strength is built. Doing it for yourself is the highest form of respect because it represents alignment between intention and action. It means you no longer require permission to grow, nor do you wait for recognition to validate your effort. When you commit to yourself, you acknowledge your own worth without negotiation. This form of respect is quiet, internal, and deeply transformative. Many people confuse self-respect with confidence or pride. In truth, self-respect is consistency. It is showing up for yourself even when motivation fades. It is keeping promises that no one else knows about. Each time you follow through, you reinforce a message to your mind. I matter. Over time, this message becomes belief. Belief becomes behavior. Behavior becomes identity. Doing it for yourself also means releasing the need to prove anything to anyone. When your actions are driven by external approval, your energy is divided. Part of you is focused on the task, and part is focused on how you will be perceived. This division weakens effort. When you act for yourself, attention becomes unified. You work with clarity, not anxiety. This focus improves quality and endurance. Self-respect grows when choices reflect values rather than impulses. It is easy to say you value growth, health, or discipline. It is harder to live it privately. Doing it for yourself means making difficult choices when no one is watching, choosing rest over escape, choosing practice over comfort, choosing honesty over convenience. These choices shape character more than any public achievement. Another dimension of self-respect is patience. When you do things for yourself, you are less rushed. You are not chasing quick validation. You are building something sustainable. This patience protects you from burnout. It allows progress to unfold naturally. You are no longer in competition with others. You are in conversation with your own potential. Doing it for yourself also changes how you handle failure. Failure no longer feels humiliating because it is not a performance. It becomes feedback. You analyze it calmly and adjust. This emotional stability is a sign of deep self-respect. You are not attached to image, you are committed to improvement. Self-respect also sets boundaries. When you value yourself, you stop over-explaining and over-giving. You choose environments and relationships that support growth. This is not arrogance, it is discernment. You protect your energy because you understand its value. Doing it for yourself means not betraying your goals to please others. There is also honesty in doing it for yourself. You stop pretending to want things you do not truly care about. You stop chasing paths that look impressive but feel empty. This honesty brings peace. Purpose aligns with effort. Life feels less fragmented. Doing it for yourself strengthens resilience. When challenges arise, you do not collapse because your motivation is internal. You are not discouraged by lack of applause or quick results. You continue because the work itself matters to you. This resilience allows you to endure long journeys. Another powerful aspect of self-respect is self-compassion. Doing it for yourself does not mean harshness. It means holding yourself accountable with understanding. You recognize limits without excusing stagnation. This balance prevents self-destruction. Growth becomes steady, not violent. Over time, doing it for yourself transforms identity. You stop seeing yourself as someone who tries and start seeing yourself as someone who does. This shift builds confidence naturally. Confidence is not declared, it is accumulated through evidence. When others observe this consistency, respect follows naturally, not because you demand it, but because it is evident. People sense when someone is grounded. This respect is a byproduct, not the goal. Doing it for yourself also brings freedom. You are less affected by opinions, trends, and comparisons. You move at your own pace. This freedom is calming. The mind is no longer pulled in multiple directions. In the long term, self-respect becomes legacy. What you build privately shapes what you offer publicly. Your discipline influences others without words. Your calm presence becomes guidance. Ultimately, doing it for yourself is an act of loyalty. Loyalty to your future self. Loyalty to your values. Loyalty to your potential. It is the highest form of respect because it requires no witness. And when respect begins within, it radiates outward naturally, without force or demand.